Welcome to Workout Wednesday for Power BI 2022 Week 18. This week we are doing a Power BI remake of a Tableau sales budget burndown chart. So the original chart was week 10 of 2022 Workout Wednesday on the Tableau side, and we're going to do it for week 18. We are using data from data.world. And if you haven't seen this, if you go to the data set and click Explore and open in a third-party app, you can choose Power BI and it'll give you exactly what you will need to copy. So let's get started here. We're going to choose our data. There is only one table available, so we'll choose that. And we don't need the time zones for this, just the date. So I'm going to change that to just be a date data type. All right, now we have nice names and our data types are correct. Good enough for me. Oh, I'm going to rename this though to something nicer and call it sales budget. So we'll also need a date table. So I have a query that I use to create a date table. I bet I borrowed this one from a blog post on Radicad and adapted it slightly. You don't need all of these columns. You just need date and end of month. So now I have date, year, start of year, end of year, month, all that fun stuff. You can make that date table as fancy or as simple as you like. We're going to close and apply. And then we need to make our relationships. And it is one to many, so that's already correct. So let's mark our date as date table. So I know I'm going to need to add some measures to support my visuals. And the first one is budget used. So we're treating that number in the budget column as the amount that was used on that day. So if the current date is less than today, we are returning the budget, the sum of the budget amount. There's really, I think, oh, because we left product in there, there actually are multiple rows, so we truly are summing. Otherwise, we're going to return 0. I'm going to add another measure. So this one is our running total. Budget used was just the sum for that date, and this is more of our cumulative. So we use that measure we just did. We filter our dates just based on what is selected, filtering for is on or after based on our max date. We're going to need to put our total budget as a measure. So over all time, which is why we did remove filters, give me the sum of the budget, but don't include filters on date. And then we need to get our total budget used. So give me the minimum between today and the max date that's available in the date table based on filter context, and return our sum of sales budget for all dates where the date is less than that minimum date we just calculated. Then we need to be able to do that perfectly diagonal line, we're going to need another measure. So what I did was get the first date and the last date for which there's data. And then I'm taking a date diff, meaning I'm subtracting. So the min date minus the max selected date given our context. And we're subtracting it in days. And then we're getting that total date range. So what's min, our max minus min rather. And then we're using that total budget measure that we set up earlier. And so we're saying total budget minus the days since the beginning date that has data times total budget divided by the date range. So that's how we're splitting up our budget evenly across all the days. Then we need to add remaining budget. So for the total budget minus the total budget used, what's left? And that gives us our last measure. So we're saying remaining budget minus estimated budget to give us the difference between what we've used and what would have been used if we had used our budget evenly across all the days. So I'll go ahead and add a title, and then I'm going to make my line chart. So this is just a normal built-in line chart, no custom visuals or any hacks. But I want this to be grouped at the month level. So I'm actually going to use end of month as my x-axis. And you'll see why in a bit. And I want to put in remaining budget and estimated budget in my y-axis. So that gives us the beginning of the line. And I'm just flipping formats out of preference. I don't like the long ones that say the of the week and spell everything out. I really just need the short date. This isn't going to matter a ton, but since I have to look at it, might as well. There we go. So we'll go ahead and finish populating our chart. We need to put some things in the tooltips. So first we're going to do the difference from the estimated budget, and we're going to do total budget used, so that when we hover over a point, we will have our 4 measures in our tooltip. And of course we want to format those. I don't really care about decimals. Make sure I've got my thousands separator though. Alright, they're all set to look like a whole number now. I like that better. You can choose your formatting if you want the, dollars in front of it or not. Let's fix our title. And we'll say sales, sales budget burn, cannot type today, down chart. And then let's format it to make it look a little bit more like what I made. So we're going to go to lines, and we're going to look at remaining budget. And we want our line to be solid. That's fine. Make that one that color. Switch to estimated to change the color here. And then we're going to turn on our markers, but we want estimated budget not to have a marker. And we're actually going to change that to a dashed line. And then we want our remaining budget to have markers. I don't necessarily need them to be quite that large though. So that's a little better. So that gives us our two main measures. And I forgot to turn off the titles. Oops. Let's fix our legend next. So instead of just doing circles, we're going to do the line and markers so that it looks just like the line that it represents. Next, we need to add that vertical line. So I'm adding one more measure to support that because we want the line to represent today, which means when we look at this chart tomorrow, the line will have moved over a little bit. So we are going to do an x-axis constant line. And we're going to call it, future. And we're going to use the measure we just made. And we're going to make it a lighter gray. So it's important for reference, but it's not should not overpower the other two lines. And then to get the shading, we have to turn on shade area, make it after. And then I want it to be lighter. So whereas our line was 50% transparency, the shading is 67%. And I do indeed want my data label on, but I don't want it to say what today is. I want it to sit on the right and just say future. Fix that color there. There's our line. And I did everything in my original. In Calibri. So we'll apply that. Line up our title and our chart. So if you are like me and you're still getting years instead of months here, go to your x-axis and we should be okay on getting rid of the minimum on the range, and then it'll automatically change. So now we've got our x-axis abbreviated month and year. labeling every 6 months or so. So the final piece is that we need to put in our total and remaining budget. So I'm going to insert a smart narrative. But I don't want any of that stuff that it created for me. I'm going to write my own. So data as of, and then I'll add a value. And we can use today. That does indeed show today. And we want to make sure we format it concisely. So data as of, total budget remaining, total budget first. And then we'll add a value. I'm going to do currency with no decimal points. Remaining budget, same thing. Oops. And then I formatted this a little bit. So I made that bold and I matched it to the color of the line, and then I made my total budget bold. Black, it's just a dark gray. And there we go. Move this over a bit. So there's our burn down chart with the estimated budget that uses the budget evenly across all the days. We've got our 4 measures in the tooltips, and we've got our x-axis constant line with shading to show where we stop using actual budget. So this is our cumulative line, and why our cumulative line just goes straight across as a consistent number from there on out. Hope you enjoyed this Workout Wednesday. This is Megan Longoria.